and around the swimming pool, which is a comparatively new section. The Monaco Grand Prix was started in 1929. This is the 49th of the series. And then from the swimming pool down to La Rascasse, the very tight right-hander. Another right-hander after that, past the old gasworks corner, and then through to the start. Each lap here is 2.1 miles long, and the lap record put up in 1990 by Ayrton Senna, 1 minute 24.468. That's a speed of 88 miles an hour. Now, Senna's pole time this year, this Prince Rainier in the Royal Box, Senna's pole time this year, his 56th pole position, was 1 minute 20.34, and that is an average speed around the whole of this lap of 92.6 miles an hour. A quite incredible performance. With Mansell, and you're looking at his teammate, Riccardo Patrese's car, directly in front of you, and on the left is Stefano Modena, and this is the start of the parade lap for the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix.
He'll move away, avoiding the suicidal cameraman who was taking that shot from the middle of the road, and away up the hill to the casino square. That's Saint-Devote. We're looking down at the corner, the cars are coming round, and then it's really, like most parts of the circuit, no overtaking up the hill, because it, although it's flat out and it is a straight, the circuit meanders a bit from side to side, and somebody takes the line and you can't squeeze through. So Senna leading them round, Modena following, his first time on the front row for a Tyrrell, and a very long time since the Tyrrell has been on the front row. It was, I understand, gear for the first section under the bridge there. That's where Cappy crashed in practice yesterday, and then down second gear for the windy section, and then first gear now where they are for the Rascasse. Very tight and twisty circuit, very demanding on the drivers physically for hard work, for sheer muscle output to wrestle these cars around the circuit, heavy on concentration, because on the conventional man-made circuit, there is room for little mistakes. You can put a wheel off on a curb and nothing, and no harm comes to you. If you put a wheel a couple of feet offline here, you hit a wall, and that's the end of your race. And so it's very demanding on that. You have to drive a slightly contained style. So Senna leading them round onto the grid. Pole man got quite a long wait now, while the rest of the field backs up into their grid positions. And remember, everybody has to be in position before the starter will throw the red light, and then 4 or 5 seconds later to green.
So watch for the red. Senna on the left, Modena on the right. There's enormous psychological pressure on Stefano Modena. It's the first time he's been on the front row, and getting to the right-hander at Saint-Devote first is going to be absolutely critical to the progress of this race. They are all in position now. 78 laps, it's a long, long time, a 2-hour race. Go! And away they go. It's a good start by Stefano Modena. All the rest of them it's Senna leading, Modena second, Patrese third. Mansell is in fourth position as they climb the hill towards Massenet. Senna. And behind Mansell is Nelson Piquet. Behind Nelson Piquet was one of the Ferraris, I suspect, Alain Prost. And already Gerhard Berger has got a problem. And look, he's got part of the barrier stuck underneath. No, it's part of the front wing has been dropped, caught off and pulled off his car. And off goes Nelson Piquet.
Yes, Piquet under a problem under braking for Mirabeau there. Berger, we didn't see what happened to him, but he's had to restart right at the back of the field. Tremendous start by Stefano Modena, but whatever he did, Ayrton Senna, who didn't get off the line as well, managed to get into Sandebot ahead. And so Senna takes his expected place at the front of the field, but the start is always a lottery, and even Senna would have had to work very hard to overtake anybody here. Overtaking is a problem. Mansell going well.
And it's Prost and Alesi behind them. Now, Ayrton Senna, Stefano Modena, Riccardo Patrese, Nigel Mansell, the first four, as they exit the swimming pool down to the Rascasse. And you can see that, as ever, Ayrton Senna's trying to build up a lead, get a cushion. He's not succeeding at the present moment. It's very tight and twisty around here. In fifth position, it's Alain Prost, who's come up from seventh on the grid, of course, with Nelson Piquet definitely being out of the race. And effectively, there is only one McLaren left, because Gerhard Berger is right down the field. He's got going again at the back of the grid. And there's a gap developing already between Stefano Modena. There's Patrese in third position, Mansell, Prost and Alesi. So one McLaren, one Tyrrell, two Williams up front. Now this is the right-hander at Mirabeau, down to Lowe's hairpin. Senna, Modena.
Interesting to see that the Williams Renault picks up through the tight hairpins here of Patrese, and certainly the Renault engine is very, very smooth indeed, and that may well be a factor in what is clearly outstanding performance through the hairpins by the Williams Renault.
Ayrton Senna is alleged, ideally, to prefer the V10 Honda engine to the V12, which he's got, and of course Modena has got the V10. Nigel Mansell hanging on in fourth place, Prost is fifth, Alesi is sixth, Moreno is seventh, and behind Moreno is Gasho. Nelson Piquet, of course, out of the race, so Bertrand Gasho going extremely well. Or is it Andrea De Cesaris? It's De Cesaris in eighth position as they round the Rascasse again. Nelson Piquet's race didn't last very long. The Monaco resident can walk home, but he would rather be walking home a lot later than he's going to be doing now. So, Senna, then Modena, Patrese. The first three are breaking away from Mansell fourth on his own. And Andrea De Cesaris in the Jordan Ford, using the same type of engine as the Benettons, but not quite such a good specification, is well up in the race. And into the second lap, Modena is still within a second of Ayrton Senna. There they are.
Yes, and we might say that on the face of it, there is good news in that Senna is not walking away from the field, and at the moment making it look like a race. However, I remember 2 or 3 years ago here, or not even as long ago as that, he had Prost behind him when they were teammates, and he played around for the first 10 laps and allowed Prost to stay with him, and we wondered what was going on, and then he just upped it another gear and disappeared into the distance. And I'm quite sure that Senna, with his experience and the restraint that he now shows in his race, in the tactical way he handles races, is taking it very easy at the front at the moment. He knows he can't be passed. He knows there is no hurry, and I'm quite sure he's driving well within himself.
Nelson Piquet has gone out with rear suspension trouble. Oh, I presume he hit something, but whatever, he's out of the race. Gerhard Berger has gone into the pits to change his front wing, and now on lap 4 in this long Monaco Grand Prix, Ayrton Senna is 0.8 of a second ahead of Modena. There is Patrese third, Mansell fourth. There's a 2.6 second gap now between Mansell and Prost, who is in fifth position in the Ferrari. You see there as they go bursting through Casino Square down to the Mirabeau. You've got to look quite a long way up the hill to see Alain Prost. Big question, are the gearboxes going to last? Of the first 4 cars at the moment, the one that's probably got the strongest gearbox of the lot is the Tyrrell of Stefano Modena in second place, because we know that Ayrton Senna had problems with his gearbox in Brazil, and we know that the Williams have had trouble with their gearboxes everywhere.
Yes, certainly the Tyrrell is the only one that's had no apparent history of gearbox trouble, but then after all, with a new gearbox this year, they haven't had a lot of opportunity for it to go wrong. And Monaco certainly puts a greater strain on the transmission of cars than even Phoenix. street circuit on which they've raced. Modena still staying very well with Ayrton Senna. The question is just how much is Senna keeping in hand. I'm sure he's keeping some. But Patrese is having to work to keep up. There's no doubt that Modena is having his pace dictated by Ayrton Senna ahead of him. It's not intelligent to drive closer than Modena is to Senna for two reasons. One is that on a circuit like this where accuracy is absolutely paramount, when you're following another car closer, you can't be accurate. You cannot see the landmarks, etc., and where you're going. Your view is filled by the back of the car and the big rear wing of the car in front. And the other thing is, which of course then puts more strain on you physically. So you need to leave unless you're trying to pass. And Modena's car seemed to understeer. Modena slowed, then he had a problem. I suspect he had a gearbox. He may have just gone in neutral and missed a gear going into the hairpin there. It's a first gear corner out onto the sea front. So mistake for Modena, but he's contained it because he managed just to stay in front of Patrese.
Yes, Modena in his 46th Grand Prix, but he's got an enormous amount of experience behind him. It's his birthday today, he's 28 years old, and his experience, as James said earlier on, started years ago in karts, where he was European champion, Asian champion, world champion, and now they are starting to close up a bit as far as second, third and fourth are concerned. Ayrton Senna goes through now to complete the fifth lap, 1.5 seconds in front of Modena, no doubt due to that problem that the Italian had. But Patrese and Mansell are right with the Italian. Prost is fifth, Alesi is sixth, Andrea De Cesaris is almost in the points for Jordan.
Yes, what will be interesting now is following that little mistake by Stefano Modena is to see whether he can pull away from the Williamses that he held up a little bit courtesy of that mistake, and whether he can close back up to Ayrton Senna. He now has the space to move from leading the Williamses to pull up to Senna.
Down through the tunnel, this famous tunnel that makes Monaco so distinctive amongst other things, and they go through that at enormous speed at some 160 miles an hour. There's very good lighting in there now. The contrast between the comparative darkness of the tunnel and the lightness of the outside is not nearly as great. But, of course, to go through at that sort of speed is a daunting challenge, as is this swimming pool section. That's where Alex Cappy went off in practice. Fortunately, he's okay. And now we're on lap 6 in this 78-lap race with 3-time winner Ayrton Senna. And you can see the gap with him in the lead and Stefano Modena there in the Tyrrell Honda. So it's a McLaren Honda leading, V12 engine. Tyrrell Honda second with sparks striking off the skid plates underneath it. With the V10 engine of Stefano Modena, it's still the V10 Renault-powered Williams of Riccardo Patrese and Nigel Mansell, third and fourth. Prost is fifth, Alesi is sixth, they're the two Ferraris. Seventh is De Cesaris, eighth is Roberto Moreno in the only Benetton left running now. Ninth is JJ Leto in the Dallara with its Judd V10 engine. 10th is Satoru Nakajima Tyrrell. 11th is Pirro in the second Dallara. And in 12th position is Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi Ferrari. Senna, of course, with 3 victories this year behind him and with 3 Monaco victories behind him in the last 4 years, is a very settled and contained man. He knows exactly what he can do. He knows exactly what the car can do. He's backed up by what is probably the best administered and organised team in the business, McLaren, and it all shows at a place like this. But in the end analysis, it's going to be who finishes that matters. Last year, if you finished in the top 3, you were one of the only 3 who had gone the race distance, because Monaco is a famous car breaker. And it looks to me now as though the Ferrari of Alain Prost in 5th position is definitely closing. Yes, indeed it is. There is Prost, 4 times a winner, and he's closing up on Nigel Mansell that we are riding with now, up the hill into the Massenet and Casino Square.
Yes, and Mansell for a while held fast this lap, but he caught teammate Patrese, and this could be a little problem for him if he wants to get past Patrese, because he's now getting attention from Alain Prost behind. In the meantime, Modena in second place, as after that little mistake he made, we seemed to arrive at that corner with a box full of neutrals, and he has pulled away a little bit from the Williams Renaults, but Senna in the meantime is pulling away at front. Modena now just over 2 seconds behind Senna, and 1.5 seconds clear of Patrese. So it's all marginal stuff, but Modena seems to be able to pull away just from the Williams Renaults.
That legend on the right indicates that number 1 Ayrton Senna in the McLaren is in the lead. 4 Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell Honda is in second place. It did not show that Andrea De Cesaris, the Italian, the man who's driven in more Grand Prix than anybody else without winning one, is in 7th place in the Jordan Ford. And Andrea seems to be a new man this year. My goodness, that Marshall needs his brains testing. He was nearly collected by Ayrton Senna there, and I don't know whether the Brazilian had to back off or not, but that's a very, very lucky Marshall indeed. Senna then through Casino Square. Look at the gap visually as he drops down the hill. That corner that you were just looking up the hill there at is, in my opinion, the most exciting one in Grand Prix racing to stand and watch, if you're lucky enough to have the right sort of pass. And there's Senna, Modena, Patrese, Mansell, Prost. They're the first 5. That's Alesi in 6th position, closely challenged by Andrea De Cesaris in 7th place. 7 seconds behind De Cesaris is Moreno 8th. Leto is 9th still, Nakajima 10th, Pirro in 11th position, and Pierluigi Martini is still 12th. Down to the new chicane, Alain Prost. Ferrari's problem, unlike that of McLaren, is that they have a lot of internal warfare, and it has been showing up this season. But Prost is definitely the steadying influence. He knows how things should be done because he has seen it from very close observation when he was with the McLaren team, and he is gradually tutoring the Italians to do it the right way. But the car is an excellent one. You can see that Prost now, with all his experience, and experience in particular at pacing himself in a race, is starting to close. Williams, Ferrari, Patrese, Mansell, Prost. Alesi in the background, taking things steadily, still in 6th place.
And Senna is pulling away from Modena just a tiny bit, but Modena in the meantime is pulling away from Patrese in 3rd place. And by pure uninteresting coincidence, Modena is 2.364 seconds, or he was as they crossed the line then behind Senna, and he's oddly enough 2.364 seconds ahead of Patrese.
Yes, thank you, Fish. So, out of the race already, Gerhard Berger. Well, out of the race effectively. He may be back in it with a new wing, but I don't think he's going to be much of a problem as far as the rest of the entry is concerned. Nelson Piquet definitely out of the race. Ivan Capelli in the Leighton house, and they're having a dreadful season, has been into the pits. And you're looking now at Jean Alesi, the Sicilian, in his first year with Ferrari, his 4th race with Ferrari, and behind the distinctive green livery of the Jordan Ford. It's a brand new team this year, founded by Eddie Jordan, the irrepressible Irishman who made his name as a driver originally in Formula Ford and Formula 3, and then of course brought on Jean Alesi as the European Formula 3000 champion in Eddie Jordan's team, and now Eddie has got an outfit of his own. And look how well Andrea De Cesaris' 7th position is going. But of course the problem here is, even if you can get up to Alesi's Ferrari, getting past at Monaco.
Yes, passing at Monaco really requires a mistake, or certainly the cooperation of the driver in front, other than out-and-out bravery. And if the driver in front wants to actively not cooperate, and he uses his head, he can drive maybe even as much as 3 seconds a lap slower than he can go and that you want to go, and there is not a lot you can do to pass him. It really is a bit of a joke trying to pass here, but then it's a long race and opportunities do arise. Drivers make mistakes, cars have little mechanical dramas that allow places to change, but the problem is if you get stuck in the traffic, it can take you a very long time, like a whole race, to get out of the rut in which you are if you're trying to pass several cars. So this is Riccardo for Tracy.
Exiting the Rascasse into the so-called finishing straight, which is anything but, up to the line with Nigel Mansell behind him and with Stefano Modena in front of him. And Gabriele Tarquini in the AGS, the Italian, who qualified quite well, would appear to be out of the race. He's in the pits, I can see him, you can't, and there's not much sign of activity around his car.
Yes, between the two Ferraris, Alain Prost is continuing to show the young pupil Jean Alesi the way things are done, because Alesi was pretty sensational in the Tyrrell here when he drove for the Tyrrell team, and Prost has in fact, even now, Alesi's got a clear track in front of him. He's chasing Prost, and Prost is pulling away from him.
Prost within 1.2 seconds of Nigel Mansell now. There is the Williams. Now look for the Scarlet Ferrari, which is in 5th position, Alain Prost. Then his teammate Alesi behind him, Andrea De Cesaris, you're riding with Nigel Mansell exiting the swimming pool section.
Yes, and this group of 3 cars, which Mansell's in the middle now, and you can see Patrese ahead, is a good example of the queues that form here at Monaco because of this no overtaking situation. You see Patrese leading the group, but both Mansell and Prost, one gets the feeling, could go a bit faster and would like to get past him, but being in front is vital in Monaco. You hold pretty well all the cards if you're in the lead.
Lap 13, long way to go. Prost. Massenet, Casino Square. Mansell in front of him. There's Patrese, 3rd. This is where Prost had the big accident last year on the very first lap, and he had to get out, run back, and start again in the spare car, which gave him a considerable disadvantage in comparison with Ayrton Senna. And that is Berger. Gerhard Berger is definitely out of the race now. He came in and had a new wing fitted, but now this is lap 13, and out goes the unfortunate Gerhard Berger. I say unfortunate because it is his misfortune to be in the same team as Ayrton Senna, and Senna is a man who always dominates a team, and he seems to me to have psychologically destroyed Gerhard Berger this year. And the Austrian, try as he may, has not been able to get on even terms with the Brazilian, and there is Senna leading.
Yes, and although we didn't see what happened, one would suspect that that was an error by Berger, but an understandable one, because there he is walking back, no doubt very disappointed with his day's work and the trouble he had at the start. But the problem is, when you get to the back of the field in a race like this, there's a tremendous pressure on you to try and charge through the field, and in order to get amongst the points, Senna working with the back markers with great bravery and, I have to say, aplomb. There, no problem at all. And Modena is holding Ayrton Senna, and between them they have pulled away from the Williamses.
That was Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi Ferrari that you saw going very slowly. It seemed to me that he marginally held Senna up more than he held Modena up. He didn't seem to be aware of Senna, and he was very aware of Modena. And the gap before was 2.5 seconds. That was on the 13th lap. We are on lap 14 now, and it'll be interesting to see whether Modena has closed up. It looks to me as though visually he has closed up a little. But now on lap 14 in this 78-lap race, the order remains the same. Senna leads, Modena 2nd, Patrese 3rd, Mansell 4th, Prost 5th, Alesi 6th, De Cesaris is still 7th, followed by Moreno 8th, Leto 9th, Nakajima 10th, Pirro 11th, and Maurizio Gugelmin in the Leighton house is in 12th place. Now, the gap has been closed, or was closed, by half a second as a result of the passing of Pierluigi Martini to Modena's benefit. And you can see now how the Italian Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell Honda is definitely pulling away from the two Williams. He's now nearly 4 seconds ahead of third man Patrese.
Yes, Patrese was being held up at the Rascasse there, or rather Sandebot, and he's finally got through, and it's taken him too long to pass Pierluigi Martini, who's a pretty experienced driver, and he got out of the way reasonably well for Modena. He wasn't very helpful to Senna, but at least once he'd been alerted to the presence of the leaders, he helped. And he's still in the way, and Mansell hasn't yet got past, and this is not good driving from Martini. He's in amongst the leaders, and he really shouldn't be holding them up. He's clearly not racing. There's a clear track in front of him. He's not exactly dicing with any other back marker, so he really has no excuse. He should be pulling out of the way. There's a three-car battle going on for third place, and it's out of order for him to be interfering with that. Tracy bouncing over the curbs there. Good shot from inside the cockpit. Hard on the brakes now, right down to first gear. The first gear section. But first gear isn't too slow in these sort of cars. They'll do probably, depending on the gearing, but probably 90 miles an hour in first, something like that.
Well, the question is, has Alain Prost derived any benefit from the passing of Pierluigi Martini? I don't know what the Italian... Yeah, see, now he's in the way of Alain Prost. This is most unlike Martini, I think. He's not usually a bloke who gets in the way and then stays in the way.
Yes, that's right. It's certainly my recollection of his driving. He's intelligent and he's normally cooperative. But he's certainly in the way here, and he's making Prost fight to get past him. And really, you shouldn't have to fight to lap somebody. There are occasional circumstances when it's understandable. If two cars at the back of the points, you know, 5th and 6th place, and they're having a big battle for that place. But really, Martini has no excuse at all. And he's experienced enough to know the problems that the leaders have with slower cars here.
I'm going to hazard a mechanical guess and say that he's missing a gear somewhere. It seemed to me from the tardy way that his Minardi was pulling away from some of those corners that he was in a higher gear than he would ideally like to have been in. But anyway, we are on lap 16 now, with Ayrton Senna still under 2 seconds ahead of Modena, who is dealing with the traffic magnificently and very much keeping the Brazilian in sight. And his previous lap was actually quicker than Ayrton Senna's. In third position, it is still the Williams of Riccardo Patrese, 7 seconds behind Modena, ahead of Mansell, and then Prost. There is the Prost.
Yes, and what this does do now, Prost has lost a lot of time. It gives us a chance, where Prost has got a clear lap, to see just how quick Prost is. Because if he can go a lot faster than he has been when travelling stuck behind the two Williamses, then if he can find a way past, it means that he may be able to chase and catch the leading pair. Mansell, of course, that also applies to. He's been stuck behind Patrese because at the moment Senna and Modena are pulling slowly away. Well, Senna's pulling away, Modena's dropping back slowly on him, but he's got 7 seconds, Modena has, back between himself and Riccardo Patrese.
And for once I'm going to say I wish we could look back down the field a bit, because there's an absolutely superb scrap going on between Alain Prost's teammate John Alesi in the second Ferrari. Well, we're seeing it now. There it is going into the new chicane, and Andrea De Cesaris, both of whom have got past Pierluigi Martini, and De Cesaris, the Italian, is right up with the Ferrari. He's in 7th place. The Jordan has yet to finish in the points. It so very nearly did so at Phoenix and Brazil and San Marino. Maybe it'll do so here. Look.
Yes, let's hope the director stays with this battle, because it's potentially volatile. Alesi is a hard, ambitious young man, and not known for giving way and making things easy. De Cesaris is a charger himself. And it looks as if De Cesaris is lining up to have a go. One of the obvious places is down the hill now after they exit the Casino Square to try and outbrake another car into the Mirabeau, but he's not close enough this time. That's into the Mirabeau corner. And certainly the Jordan team are really making a good impression in Grand Prix racing. They already They're a beautifully turned out team. The car looks extremely smart and functional. It looks quick. It is quick. And they have arrived with a real bang. And it's an embarrassment for Ferrari, with all their experience and everything, to have a brand new team on a limited budget saying, well, frankly, being held up by a Ferrari. And they're probably well happy that it's here, where it's that much more difficult than usual for the junior to get past.
But the only thing that isn't Irish about the Jordan team are the two drivers, because Eddie Jordan, of course, very much an Irishman. Gary Anderson, who designed it, is Irish. Some of the money for the team has come from Ireland itself, and they're doing jolly well. And we are now in lap 19, on lap 19, and Pierluigi Martini is still, by the standards of the people in front of him, fumbling around the circuit. He is well down, and it's still Senna who has extended his lead a little. He's just gone round 0.3 of a second faster than Modena. And I must say, I'm full of admiration for Modena. And now the Ferrari and the Jordan are catching Michele Alboreto in the sole footwork Porsche. That's the new Alan Jenkins designed car, the twin of which was crashed by Cathy yesterday.
Cesaris took a little bit of a risk there, because I wasn't sure whether Alboreto had seen him, but it enabled him to stick right with the Ferrari. He did what you can very often do, and that is when a back marker makes room. If you stick right on the gearbox of the car that he's made room for, you can follow through in the same hole, and that's really what Andrea did there.
Interesting technical battle here, because it's a V12 engine Ferrari and a V8 Ford-powered Jordan. And there were a lot of people at the beginning of the season who said that a V8 had got no useful life left in it. Well, De Cesaris is certainly proving them wrong. And now we are riding with the Benetton Ford of Roberto Moreno, the Brazilian, exiting the swimming pool. That's the Rascasse restaurant on the right, and Moreno at the wheel.
Well, at the moment, we have pretty much a two-horse race between Senna setting the pace and Modena clinging on. And that is how it looks to me, looking at the lap times. While Modena's lap times have been very consistent, Senna's have been up and down a little bit, but he does seem able to put in quicker laps than Modena whenever he wants to. And that suggests to me that he is driving, as I said before, in my opinion, with a fair bit in hand. There are no extra points for winning the race by a mile. You don't have to. All you have to do is win it to get your 10 points. You don't have to be a lap ahead of everybody. And Senna, I think, is probably using his experience to drive very conservatively here. He knows that the biggest difficulty in this race is to finish it for him anyway. Much more difficult than leading it and being quick enough. And he will have been driving right from the start with a view to finishing.
As you watch Roberto Moreno in 8th place in the Benetton Ford, let us make no mistake about it, Ayrton Senna is controlling the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix from the front in his McLaren Honda V12. I said incidentally at the San Marino Grand Prix that Senna liked to be fastest and best at everything. He liked to win the most races, he liked to have the most pole positions, he liked to put up the most fastest laps. And no less an authority than Andrew Ferguson of Lotus pointed out to me that Senna does not, in fact, always go for the fastest lap, because he's usually in front and he doesn't have to make the fastest lap. It's the people behind him who are desperately trying to catch him and get past him who have to go quicker. Well, at the present moment, that is certainly the case. You've just seen the caption, Senna leading Modena by 2.8 seconds. The last time a Tyrrell won a Grand Prix, as Moreno goes through on the inside and takes veteran Michele Alboreto, who, by the way, is still suffering great pain from his 2 broken ribs as a result of the accident he had before the San Marino Grand Prix, not to mention his gashed leg. But I was saying the last time that a Tyrrell won a Grand Prix was Detroit in 1983, and it was Michele Alboreto, who you've just seen in the footwork Porsche, who was driving for Ken then. Now, lap 21 in this 78-lap race. And actually, the number of retirements that we've had are not nearly as many as I would have expected. Nelson Piquet out on the first lap. Ivan Capelli is out. Tarquini is out. Gerhard Berger is the most notable of the possible winners, who is out of the Monaco Grand Prix. But still plenty left in the running. And Ayrton Senna has lapped everybody up to 18th place at the moment with no problem at all. He's leading by 3.7 seconds now. He's putting on the pressure in comparative terms, pulling away from Modena. In fact, there is now some 11 seconds between Senna in the lead, Patrese, who is third. Patrese is 5 seconds ahead of Mansell in fourth position, and Prost is within a second and a half of Nigel Mansell. Prost is fifth, well ahead of his teammate Jean Alesi. The only real scrap on the circuit at the present moment is between Jean Alesi and Andrea de Cesaris, which we've been watching for sixth position. And you've just seen, there he is, Roberto Moreno in 8th place. And that is de Cesaris. Well, oh dear, Andrea de Cesaris out of the Monaco Grand Prix on lap 22. And he's parking up behind Nelson Piquet's car. Obviously, I don't know what the problem is, but it's taking the pressure off Alesi as Senna now comes up to lap the Lola Ford. I can't see whether it's Bernard or Suzuki at the present moment. It's Suzuki, the Japanese driver, who moves over and lets Senna through on the entrance to the Mirabeau, dropping now down to Lowe's hairpin on lap 23.
Yes, and now Senna's well and truly getting amongst the traffic. It'll be interesting to see just how well Stefano Modena can cope with the traffic, because, of course, he should, in theory, have a slight advantage over Senna when getting amongst the traffic, because Senna, being the leader of the race, alerts those back markers that the leaders have reached them and are coming through. And so second place man, at least they should be a little bit more aware of his approach.
Senna coming up to lap Gianni Morbidelli, the Italian in the Minardi Ferrari. It's only his sixth Grand Prix. He knows his manners and moves over and lets Ayrton Senna through. And there's a big battle developing now, which hopefully we'll be able to see, because whilst Alesi was being challenged by Andrea de Cesaris, only for de Cesaris to drop out, Alain Prost is now right with Nigel Mansell in fourth position as Ayrton Senna goes through to start his 24th lap, 3.3 seconds ahead of Stefano Modena, who was lapping the previous lap marginally quicker than Senna. But Senna knows exactly what the score is. He's matching Modena's lap time all the way round, maintaining a cushion in front of the Tyrrell Honda. Ayrton Senna very close to his apartment now. The next corner, but one, after this right-hander, is where he retired so dramatically in 1988 and disappeared, walked back to his flat, shut himself away and disappeared until the next day. Doesn't look as though that's likely to happen today, because Senna is very much in control of everything. Now that's Stefano Modena coming out to Morbidelli. You saw how Senna dealt with the Minardi Ferrari. And by the way, the V12 Ferrari engine in that Minardi is not to the same specification as the ones in the Works Ferrari cars, and they've been, frankly, a disappointment. Modena goes through. Well, Morbidelli's using his mirrors well. 3.3 seconds on lap 23 was the gap. Both Senna and Modena passed Morbidelli. Senna is now on his 25th lap, and the gap has gone up to 4.8 seconds. Another example of how well Senna deals with the traffic.
Yes, and Morbidelli wasn't as helpful to Modena as he had been to Senna, but part of that is, of course, because Senna, they're so used to seeing Senna going a lot quicker than a lot of these drivers, to a certain extent, psyched by him, and they see him coming and they jump out of the way. And that is, a lot of that is to do with Senna, because he doesn't hang around and they don't get out of the way. He tends to come past pretty forcefully, and that discourages them from it. And it really has. He's worked over the years, you know, this psychological advantage he has over the back markers in getting through them is something that he has really built up.
himself.
On lap 25 now. Well, it looks as though at the present moment, unless something happens to Senna when he's passing the driver, and it wouldn't be the first time that had happened, or if something happens to the McLaren, which is always very unlikely, he's on his way to yet another Grand Prix victory, which would be his 30th in his incredible career. Now there are the two Lola Fords. That's Mark Blundell being caught by Riccardo Patrese, who is third. There's Riccardo. This is his 212th Grand Prix, and he's coming up to lap Mark Blundell in the Brabham Yamaha. Mark's first Grand Prix at Monaco, only his fourth Grand Prix altogether. But you can see that Yamaha engine has got plenty of power, because Blundell is smoking, and he manages to stay ahead of Patrese up the hill. Now you can see the sort of problem that a driver has. See how wide the Brabham is in relation to the course, but Blundell sees Patrese, moves over, lets him through, and that's one of the Lolas. Well, it is Suzuki, Aguri Suzuki, out at Monaco, and so that means that Berger is out, Piquet is out, Capelli is out, Tarquini is out, De Cesaris is out with a stuck, his problem was a stuck throttle, and now Aguri Suzuki, and he looked to me as though he had just slid into the Armco barrier, presumably as a result of a brake problem. Through the tunnel then, and you can now, the gap that's developed between Patrese, and we're riding with him now. This is the drop down with the Hotel Metropole on the left, the right-hander at the Mirabeau. Looking at it from Patrese's point of view as he comes down to Lowe's hairpin, about 40 miles an hour, into the right-hander before the Portier. This is it. That leads through third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear, through the tunnel at 160 miles an hour, building up to 165 on the exit, and then down to the new chicane.
Well, Modena has brought a little bit of that gap back. It's now under 4 seconds, but of course it's going to bounce around with the traffic. But the traffic is now very much a fact of life for the rest of the race, although it will thin out with retirements during the race. The leaders will now, the cars are pretty evenly spread all over the circuit. Now we're looking from Patrese's Williams Renault. He's got traffic ahead, and he's going to have to find a way around. So Patrese is now pretty much on his own. He's some 10 seconds behind Modena, but he's pulled away an 8-second gap on Nigel Mansell. Mansell, of course, has detailed attention from Alain Prost right behind him, who is, if not imminently looking for a way past, he's certainly stalking him to look for a mistake. And so, on-board shot from Patrese's car. And we'll be looking to see what Patrese is going to do about this back marker.
And it is, of course, Gianni Morbidelli in front of him. And he just drives past him, no problem. And whenever I'm stopped by people in Britain and asked a question about motor racing, it's always, is Nigel going to do it this year? Well, I sadly have to say that on form at the present moment, it looks sadly as though Nigel Mansell is not going to do it this year. With 3 retirements in the first 3 races at Phoenix, Arizona, Brazil, San Marino, at Imola. He's only in 4th position at the moment, 8 seconds behind his teammate Riccardo Patrese, and as James has said, only marginally ahead of Alain Prost. Indeed, I wish we could have a look at it, because we're concentrating on looking at the evergreen Riccardo Patrese driving round on his own now, in 3rd position, 11 seconds behind Stefano Modena. And for my money, the man of the race at the moment is Stefano Modena. You expect Ayrton Senna to do what he is doing, to take pole position and to lead the race. That is standard form these days. Perhaps we don't pay enough attention to the Brazilian, but he does make it look so very easy. But Stefano Modena is driving an absolutely magnificent race. To start from 2nd on the grid, alongside Senna, to get away and go through Saint-Devote, to hold that 2nd place, and still only to be 4 seconds or so behind in second place but ahead of everybody else is a very considerable achievement for him. The highest he's finished ever was in third place at Monaco when he drove for Brabham. So this is a circuit that he likes and that he's very good at, and Patrese is on his own as Senna goes through Casino Square, and he is now on his 29th lap, and he's leading by 6.8 seconds, and this is very significant indeed. His previous lap was nearly 3 seconds faster than Modena because the Italian Stefano Modena was being held up by traffic. Ayrton Senna had got and has got a clear track in front of him. Patrese still third, 8.5 seconds behind Modena, 9 seconds ahead of Mansell, who is 1 second ahead of Prost in fifth place. John Alesi in the second Ferrari is in sixth position, and if there has been an inquest at Maranello, the Ferrari headquarters, about the performance of the Prost and Alesi cars, and drivers for that matter, at the first three races of the year, I would expect it to be intensified after Monaco if they don't do better here than they are doing now, because this is the fourth race in the 16-race season, 25% of the way through it, and whilst Ferrari are in second place in the Constructors' Championship, they are an incredible 30 points behind the leaders McLaren, as Senna comes up to ex-Ferrari driver Michele Alboreto, who won 3 races for Ferrari, 2 for Tyrrell, and is here in the footwork Porsche. And that Porsche engine has been a big disappointment too. Everybody expected Porsche, who after all designed the TAG turbocharged engine, which McLaren used with such tremendous success, to have no problem in producing a 3.5-litre normally aspirated engine for Grand Prix racing, but it has been a sad disappointment. And we are now on lap 30. And Senna will be maintaining his rhythm, making sure that if he's coming up to lap people, he does it cleanly and smoothly to avoid going into them, as he has done in the past.
Yes, but he's an older and wiser man now. He's very experienced, and of course he has the luxury of being able to dictate this race very much as he wants. So he can judge the way he arrives at back markers upon which part of the circuit he gets close to them to make his bid. And certainly this is a race in which he has, at the moment, with the car running well, total control on everything that's going on. He's fully aware of Modena's speed behind him. Modena is struggling now. The traffic has taken Senna further away. The gap now is 8 seconds. And that is mostly through traffic for Stefano Modena. And in fact, he's thought traffic has hurt him quite a lot, because Patrese has come back from some 10 seconds behind Modena to now 7.5. So Modena of the leaders has thus far done worse than the traffic, but there's a long way to go and a lot of slower cars to pass yet.
Lap 31 then, race order. Ayrton Senna leads by 8.2 seconds. Stefano Modena second, 7.5 seconds ahead of Patrese, who is 13 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, who has gone up to fourth position ahead of Nigel Mansell, unseen by you on your monitors, for the simple reason that it wasn't shown. Nigel Mansell then in fifth position now, dropping back. He's obviously got a problem. John Alesi, you can see the gap there between him and Nigel Mansell, is in sixth position. Roberto Moreno in the Sol Benetton Ford is seventh. JJ Leto, who finished third at San Marino, having had to pre-qualify, a brilliant achievement, is well up the field at the present moment there. And the Finnish driver is definitely a man to watch. Senna, lap 32, 8.6 seconds. He's now consistently lapping faster than Modena. And Riccardo Patrese is 9 seconds behind the Williams. And it's significant, of course, that the Honda technicians here, who look after respectively the V10 and the V12 engines of the Tyrrells and the McLarens, are in competition with each other, and they're in first and second places, with Senna in the McLaren, Modena in the Tyrrell, both of them showing the way to the Williams Renaults of Patrese and Mansell, third and fifth, the V12 Ferrari of Alain Prost in fourth position, and the V12 Ferrari of Jean Alesi in sixth place, Roberto Moreno in seventh position.
Well, Mansell lost some 4 seconds to Alain Prost on his first lap behind him, but whether that's because we haven't been able to see him, but whether that's because he was in trouble or whether it's because there's a back marker in the way, we will have to just wait and see.
I told you that Moreno was in seventh position, JJ Leto is eighth, Nakajima is in ninth position, and that is Alain Prost that you see going round the swimming pool section, and he's up to Gianni Morbidelli, the man that we have seen lapped by Senna and by Modena and by Patrese. And Prost goes through now. But the first two, Senna and Modena, are both lapping in under 1 minute 26. Riccardo Patrese is lapping in 1 minute 28.9 and Prost 1 minute 28.0. So Alain Prost, 12 seconds behind Riccardo Patrese, is cutting into the Italian's lead. That is Alain Prost in fourth place, and he's the interest in the race at the present moment. You can see that he's 11.78 seconds, or was, behind Riccardo Patrese. He's cutting into the Italian's lead at the rate of 1 second a lap. The Ferrari looking healthy and sounding healthy. We haven't seen Nigel Mansell for a long time. He's still going, but he's now only 1.6 seconds ahead of John Alesi, who is sixth, and I'm confident that Mansell has got some sort of a car problem, because Nigel is a fighter and a charger. He loves Monaco. He has never done well here and was hoping to do well here today, but it was destined obviously not to be. There was the time I remember when he was leading at the Lotus in the rain, only to go off into the barrier. And it's now Ayrton Senna is stamping his authority on the race. He's now nearly 10 seconds ahead of Stefano Modena, with Riccardo Patrese 13 seconds behind the Tyrrell, as there is Alboreto Gugelmin, one of the Ligiers, and Bertrand Gachot is still running in 13th position in the second Jordan Ford, his teammate of course, and that is Gachot on the inside, trying to take Thierry Boutsen in the Ligier Lamborghini, the blue car, who is 12th. So you're looking at the 10th, 11th, the 11th, 12th, 13th and 14th drivers now. There's Alboreto, Gugelmin, Boutsen and Gachot. No problem up front for Ayrton Senna. Lap 34. We're getting on towards the half-distance point as Gachot goes through, Gugelmin goes through, takes Alboreto, who of course is a lap down. And that's Prost. Now Prost is getting in amongst the traffic here. Prost then in fourth place. Watch him lap these men, past Gachot.
Watch him struggle. It is a very depressing sight when you're got racing for the lead or leading places, as Prost is doing, when you see a gaggle of 4 back markers all scrapping away in front of you. You worry how many laps it's going to take you to pass them. Well, Prost is certainly being more aggressive than usual with the back markers, I'm glad to say, because that doesn't mean that he's got to be very aggressive. But he is at least being firm and showing him he means business. And a new fastest lap for Riccardo Patrese that we see there. So Patrese not beaten yet by any matter of means. He's fastest lap of the race so far.
Yes, but it's still well below the lap record. Ayrton Senna's 1 minute 24.468. But they are still, well, not at half distance yet, so they will have rather more than half a fuel load on, and the fuel of course is heavy. And that is Riccardo Patrese that you're looking at now. Second in Brazil. The only Williams car to finish a Grand Prix thus far this year, because in 6 starts, Nigel Mansell retired 3 times, Riccardo Patrese retired twice, and Riccardo finished, as I have just said, in 2nd place in Brazil, to give him the 6 points which have put him into 4th position in the World Championship. And he's going through now to start his 36th lap, and he's 12 seconds behind Modena, who is now 9 seconds behind Senna. We're climbing the hill with the harbour on the right behind the barrier, round the Hotel de Paris, now into Casino Square, now dropping down the hill, Metropole on the left, Mirabeau on the right, on towards the tunnel again.
And we've just had a message here that Mansell has got a problem, as we surmised. One really has to feel very sorry for Nigel Mansell, having all the bad luck. His engine is apparently cutting out intermittently, and that will, of course, mean that he just cannot race competitively with the front runners, and problems like that, if they're going to move in any direction, tend to get worse as the race goes on.
Yes, there's the sole McLaren. It is, of course, Ayrton Senna, because whilst Gerhard Berger seems to have all the bad luck, Senna, as a combination of ability and experience, has a lot of good luck.
And this traffic has brought Modena much, much closer to Ayrton Senna. There's a real gaggle of traffic. Oh, there was a Tyrrell in there, unless that was Nakajima being lapped. Modena 8 seconds behind. Yes, it was indeed Nakajima. Modena is closing, but of course he will then be faced with all that traffic to fight his way through as well. And Senna's done a pretty good job. He's lost very little time getting through that group.
And it's 29-year-old Pierluigi Martini from Lavizzola who was temporarily holding up Senna again. I have to say that it's most unlike Martini to be driving the way he is driving today. And Senna's lead is now down to 8 seconds as a result of the traffic. And Modena is actually lapping a second faster. And there's a spin. Is that Modena or is it Nakajima? It's Nakajima who's spun. There's Modena going through. So Nakajima has spun the Tyrrell. He's being pushed. He's therefore out of the race. Nakajima in the Tyrrell Honda, out of the Monaco Grand Prix, having spun it, and he will be disgusted. Here's a replay. Senna goes through, and Nakajima gets it all crossed up, trying to get through on the inside and take Martini, as over the curb goes Emanuele Pirro in the Dallara Judd V10. Ayrton Senna is now on his 38th lap. We're waiting for Modena to go through. I'll tell you how it's affected the Brazilians' lead, and I bet it's beneficial. It is, but not by all that much. 8.5 seconds now. So Stefano Modena, who had to jink round the side of his teammate Satoru Nakajima, has lost half a second to Senna. This is lap 38. Well, there is the man whose birthday it is today, Stefano Modena, still in second position. Important moment for Modena. Let's see if he can get through past these back markers quickly, because Riccardo Patrese, of course, has closed up. Naturally, there is Nakajima just taking his helmet off, and that really was a mistake on his own. There was a bit of a kerfuffle going on in front, but he had space to avoid it, and that really just underlines how terminal it is here. With one little slip, it's all over. Now, Modena. Past Emanuele Pirro is his first one he'll have to attack. See if the power of the Honda V10, and Pirro I don't think is going to help him. Now you see Senna would definitely have been passed by now, and if Modena doesn't make positive moves himself, he's not going to get past him. Yeah, he's got the Judd V10 powered Dallara in front of him. And hats off to John Judd, incidentally, because he and his very small team at rugby are producing engines as Modena goes through. No, he doesn't, because Pirro forcefully slams the door in his face. And all the time, Modena is losing time now, because not only has he got to get past Pirro, who is in 9th position, but then he's got to lap again Martini in the black Minardi Ferrari.
Yes, and that was terrible, driving by Pirro going into Mirabeau. He clearly didn't see Modena, had no idea he was there, and yet the blue flag was being waved at him, and all he was doing was looking at the chap in front. And Pirro's an experienced driver, and he's never been that quick, so you'd think he'd have time to look around him, but maybe that's why he hasn't been that quick.
Well, I was saying, apropos of Pirro's engine, as we reach half distance now, because we are on lap 38, that John Judd and his team have to produce engines for sale, whereas, of course, Renault give their engines to Williams, Ferrari provide their own engines, Honda give their engines to their teams. And I think John Judd and his team have done an absolutely superlative job in their first year with this V10 engine, after saving the day for the Williams team when they lost Honda engines by providing them with Judd V8s. So it's Pirro and still Martini in front of him, and still Modena doesn't get past, and the gap now is 13 seconds to Modena and Senna.
Yes, this is the crisis for Modena. He's losing 4 seconds a lap here, and Pirro... Oh, dear, oh dear, and that's not helping Modena. These two fighting amongst themselves. Pirro's all over the road. He just carved him up again. This is really disgraceful driving by Pirro. Modena trying to hold second place down in the Grand Prix. He's got important work to do, and Pirro's just twice he's moved over right on top of him, and that will discourage Modena from trying to pass him, because he doesn't know what the chap's going to do.
Not only that, but Riccardo Patrese, you just saw him come into the chicane, is coming right up to Stefano Modena. Patrese in 3rd position was a long 10 seconds behind Modena. It's down to 5 seconds now, and if Modena can't get past Pirro and Martini, who is just as much of a problem as Pirro is, it's going to mean that Riccardo Patrese is right with the second place man. There is the second place man in the white and black Tyrrell Honda, with the marshal doing a good job with the flag. He's letting Martini and Pirro know that Modena is behind him, but they either can't see the flag or can't be bothered. And you can see now Riccardo Patrese, look for him, there he is in the Williams. This is the battle now that's developing between the Tyrrell Honda of Modena in 2nd place and the Williams Renault of Riccardo Patrese 3rd, catching Modena.
Yes, we've just passed half distance in the race. Well, there's one car out of the way, and Modena very skillfully and sensibly uses Pirro to nip through, but he still hasn't got rid of Pirro. And this is really is disgraceful driving by Manuel Pirro. He could have let Modena go and then got on with his battle with Martini. He had no business to be holding him up. And Patrese having trouble, Riccardo Patrese, but I should think the power of the Renault engine will get him past, and it has indeed. So Modena has really suffered, because Patrese, for whom he built up a 12-second lead through hard work, has had it reduced to nothing in the space of 3 laps, courtesy of Emanuele Pirro.
That is Riccardo Patrese that you are looking at now in 3rd place, with a real incentive. The incentive to catch the Tyrrell ahead of him. Riccardo, he's got past Martini. Now through to complete another lap. Meantime, Ayrton Senna is now 20 seconds, nearly 21 seconds ahead of Modena, who still hasn't got past Emanuele Pirro. The Roman Emanuele Pirro. It's his 27th Grand Prix, and he's not going to be very proud of this one. Now watch Patrese. I wonder if Patrese is going to have any more luck. Now this is from Patrase's car. And through at last goes Modena. And is Pirro going to let Patrese through? No, thank you. Yes, please, he's through. Now, and that has been a gigantic benefit to Riccardo Patrese, 36 years old, from Panama. whatever. And he's on his way now. We could well see a change for second place. Although Modeno's got a clear track in front of him, he'll be able to build up to the speed that he was at before. He's been lapping nearly 3 seconds a lap slower than Senna. They're on lap 42 now. And this has, in my opinion, put the race on a plate for Ayrton Senna. The 21-second gap that he's got now will enable him carefully and calmly, with all his knowledge and experience, to control the race from the front.
Yes, in the meantime, the officials were showing the black and white cross flag to Pierluigi Martini, who certainly was holding Pirro up, and Pirro might well say, well, I was trying to get past him too, and why should I look in my mirror? But that's not the point. He was being lapped, and he's an experienced driver. He would certainly say he's intelligent, and if he's intelligent, why can't he discharge his responsibilities to the other drivers? And really that has hurt Modena's race a lot, but it's helped Riccardo Patrese immensely, and what it has done is given us a battle. Now this is, so we now look at a battle for second place, courtesy of Emanuele Pirro, because he helped Patrese through, having solemnly held Modena up for a further 2 laps after they both got past Martini. But it gives us a big blow up and oil from Modena's car, and it looks like Patrese has spun on it, and that looked like a massive engine blow up. And Patrese's hit something. Patrese lost control of his car on the oil, and you can't say that's any fault of Patrese. It's one of those things. Modena's gone straight on, and what a disappointment for the race. We've lost 2 second and third place men in a flash.
Yes, and out too has gone Michele Alboreto. All of a sudden, we're getting a lot of retirements. Well, you can tell from the way Riccardo Patrese is standing indignantly looking down towards Stefano Modena, and now his downcast appearance, that he really is totally dejected, and with every good reason, as the marshals push in the footwork Porsche, the new one, the only one to start this race, with Alex Caffey having destroyed the other one so thoroughly in practice. And now, up into second place has gone Alain Prost. The two protagonists are at it again. Ayrton Senna leading, Alain Prost in second position. That is Jean Alesi there going through. And I remind you that either Prost or Senna have won the Monaco Grand Prix for the last 7 years. Nigel Mansell is up into third position. And whatever the problem is, he seems to have at least partly mastered it, because he has just done his fastest lap. Alesi is in fourth place. Up into fifth place goes Roberto Moreno, and back again in the points, as he was in the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, goes JJ Leto in the V10 Judd-powered Dallara. And that is the Ferrari going through on the inside and taking Thierry Boutsen in the Ligier Lamborghini. And Ayrton Senna now out on his own. I said that he would be very happy with a 20-second lead. Well, he now has a 35-second lead, and in the race distance that's left, because we are on lap 44 with 34 laps to go, I can't see even Alain Prost catching Ayrton Senna. And we'll see how the lap times compare as the Frenchman comes up to Pierluigi Martini, the mobile chicane at Monaco today in the Minardi Ferrari. It's a Ferrari, and he's at it again. Prost really has to bully his way through.
Yes, and that was rather impressive. That's fairly un-Prost-like driving. And Martini has been given the warning flag for bad driving and not paying attention to his mirrors, and I would have thought that he must be facing disqualification if he continues to be unhelpful. That's Michele Alboreto walking back, and we saw his footwork arrows parked beside the track, possibly something to do with the Modena blow-up, because he seemed to park it there in the same incident, or maybe he was avoiding Patrese's resultant spin.
And here are the first 20 then, while you watch Prost exiting the tunnel. It's Senna leading Prost by 40 seconds. Mansell is 15 seconds behind Prost. Alesi is 5 seconds behind Mansell in fourth place. Then it's Roberto Moreno in fifth place. Leto 6th, Pirro 7th, Gugelmin 8th. Thierry Boutsen is in 9th place, a lap down. Bertrand Gachot is 10th. Morbidelli is 11th. Bernard is 12th. Hakkinen in the Lotus is 13th. 1 lap down. Modena in 14th position, of course, now is out of the race. So effectively there are only 13 cars competing on this, the 46th lap, and I would bet big money that there's going to be several more coming out of the Monaco Grand Prix. Only 3 went the distance last year. Now, Senna is lapping at the moment 2.5 seconds faster than Prost, but that was when Prost was still fighting his way through the traffic. There he is, on his way. This is the man who has won more Grand Prix than anybody else in the history of Grand Prix racing. A magnificent 44 victories, and that is Maurizio Gugelmin out in the Leighton House. Yet another retirement for him, because Maurizio this year has only finished once, San Marino. Senna. An utterly commanding performance. And if Senna wins this one, another 10 points, 40 points out of the 40 that were possible, it is going to make him virtually impossible to catch in the World Championship, let alone beat.
Senna is now taking it very easy. He's lapping some 1.5 seconds slower than he's shown us that he's capable of going at the moment. We will see if Prost, I doubt very much whether Prost is going to make any real effort to chase Senna. I think Prost will know that Senna has got plenty in hand. The gap has stayed very, very much the same as it was a lap ago, some 44 seconds, and that's a mountain to climb. But there would be some benefit, of course, in Prost keeping going as fast as he can, without overstressing his car. He's got to secure second place, and he's got to be aware of that. He's 10.5 seconds in front of Mansell, who's in third. But he needs to keep the pressure on Senna, because if he makes Senna keep driving hard, that can, of course, keep the mechanical pressure on Senna's car, and he might just get a breakdown. Unlikely to get a mistake from Senna with that big a cushion.
Now, we have something interesting. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it, but Martini has been given a time penalty. That's the first time that this new rule has been implemented in Grand Prix racing this year. And the penalty is a regular one of 10 seconds. And the way it works is, after a complicated procedure from the clerk of the course to the team in its pit, the driver has to come into the weighing area, which is at the entrance to the pit lane, stop for 10 seconds, and then go on his way. And I presume, I don't know, but I presume that time penalty has been imposed on Martini for unsportsmanlike driving, which was why he was shown the black and white flag earlier on. And they've decided that his blocking tactics, whether deliberate or accidental, are unacceptable. Now, it may be significant that Pierluigi Martini, who has been pretty fed up with his own lack of progress this year, said if he didn't get a World Championship point, or 2, or 3, or 4, he would retire from racing. Well, he actually got some points at the San Marino Grand Prix, but he doesn't seem to be doing very much about it subsequently.
Yes, we didn't see it, but Mark Blundell, unfortunately, is out of the race. He apparently hit the barrier at the chicane. One would suspect that may well have been on the oil from the Modena blow-up, which happened on the exit of the tunnel, and the oil would have been spread down to the chicane by following cars. An unfortunate race meeting, really, for the Brabham team. The incident that affected Martin Brundle on Thursday in first qualifying. What did seem very strange to me was that he didn't get a chance to qualify on Saturday with no time, with just his time taken away from Thursday, because there was no suggestion that the car was actually illegal, and they had plenty of chance to make sure it was running legal on Saturday, and it seems to be a negative thing to do, just to reduce the entry to the Grand Prix over a rule such as that.
12 14 left in the race. And Nigel Mansell has just done the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 25.035, to bring him within 8 seconds of Alain Prost. We might even have a race on our hands for second place.
Yes, and I would think that Mansell's misfire maybe has gone away because he's been lapping consistently quickly over the last 3 or 4 laps, and he's definitely closing on Prost. And that can happen. The telemetry on the engine can change. And certainly whatever it is, because not only with an intermittent misfire, it doesn't seem to be doing it intermittently either, because as I say, he has been consistently quick just for the last few laps in this race.
Nigel Mansell, who I always refer to as the man from the Isle of Man, having left Paul Green in Birmingham, but he's soon to be the man from Florida, because he's leaving the Isle of Man and moving to an allegedly extremely palatial home near his great golfing friend, Greg Norman. And Mansell now, let's see how he is going. He was 8 seconds behind Alain Prost as he started the previous lap. Prost is now 45 seconds behind Senna, and Mansell is 6.1 seconds behind. So, Mansell is catching Prost in his second at the rate of 2 seconds a lap. We are on lap 50, so that means to say that on lap 53, he should be with the man who is in second place. And we have news from around the pit lane that Riccardo Patrese has walked in. We're hoping to have a word with him later on, but the Italian is now ready to talk to Jonathan Palmer.
Riccardo, that was absolutely appalling luck there. Tell us what happened. It happened at Modena. I was in the Gulf Modena under the tunnel, and in the middle of the fast bend, he blew the engine completely, put down a lot of oil, and I couldn't do anything because in the moment that he blew, he put down the oil. I was in 6 flat with the oil. I just spun and crashed.
Well, was it the oil or the smoke that was the problem?
It was an ocean of oil under the tunnel.
Okay.
Now, Riccardo Patrese is understating things considerably, because he would have been doing something like 160 miles an hour when he hit that oil, and would have been immediately totally out of control with no friction between his wheels and the road at all, straight off into the barrier. And it's a testimony to the strength of his Williams, designed by Patrick Head and his team, that he was able to walk back to the pits. And now Ayrton Senna, still 40-odd seconds. Actually, Prost is carving into Senna's lead at the rate of 1.3 seconds a lap. But when I tell you that Senna's lead is 43 seconds, you'll realise that Prost is very unlikely to catch him. And Prost, of course, is being stimulated. There is Alesi in 4th place by the fact that Mansell is catching him. Sean Alesi, not the best buy that Ferrari have made, in the opinion of a lot of people. He's alleged to have cost Ferrari some £10 million this year, not only for the £4 million or so that he is paid, but the rest that will have gone to the Williams team and the Tyrrell team, for both of whom he signed contracts last year, as well as Ferrari. Broadly speaking, last year, if someone put a piece of paper in front of Jean Alesi, he signed it. And since most of them were contracts, it cost Ferrari a great deal of money to get him on their string. And of course, he was second last year at Monaco, as he was at Phoenix. A brilliant street driver, we thought, but not so well here. He's only finished once this year, 6th at Brazil.
Yes, and Mansell's charge towards Alain Prost in second place has produced a response from Prost finally, and he has upped his speed a little bit and is now holding Mansell, and in fact has finally gone 1 second closer to Ayrton Senna, because he'd been monitoring his pace very much with Senna. They'd been keeping the gap very much at 44 seconds for quite some time, but finally Prost, as I say, has responded. But 5 seconds isn't a lot to play with, and when Mansell gets on a charge, he can drive in a very inspired fashion.
We're riding with Roberto Moreno. in 5th position at the moment. In the Benetton Ford, Roberto got his chance at the Japanese Grand Prix last year after Alessandro Nannini had his helicopter accident, and Moreno grasped it with both hands, brilliantly finished in 2nd position, and you can see he's doing well now. He is in 5th place in the new John Barnard designed car, having finished 7th in Brazil this year. He's yet to score a point, but at the present moment, with 5th position, he's on his way to get 2 points. And the race order, with Senna leading on lap 53, is Prost second, 43 seconds behind Senna, and 5 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell, who is 12 seconds ahead of Jean Alesi, 4th. Roberto Moreno, that you're looking at, is in 5th position. JJ Leto, 1 lap down, is still in the points, 6th. Emanuele Pirro, 7th. Boutsen, 8th. Gasho is in 9th position. Bernard, 10th. Hakkinen, 2 laps down in the Lotus, is 11th. Morbidelli is in 12th position. Comas is 13th. And in 14th place is Pierluigi Martini, with Gianni Morbidelli 3 laps down, the last of the runners, in 14th place. And the fastest lap we have so far is Nigel Mansell, lap 48, 1 minute 25.035, which is some half a second below the lap record. And in the pit lane, Jonathan Palmer is with Mark Blundell.
Mark, things seem to be going well for you. With the Brabham Yamaha, it all seemed to come to an end in the tunnel. Tell us what happened.
I think Alboreto must have dropped some oil coming through the tunnel, and myself, Stefano Modena and Patrese have all gone off on it. Quite a large accident, maybe about 150 miles an hour. The ironic thing is I just overtaken Bernard on that same lap, and he's now in 10th place, so I'm a little bit cheesed off about it.
A great shame. Hard luck, Murray. Back to you, Murray.
Right, well, I don't know if Mark Blundell can hear me, but congratulations thus far on an excellent race. First time at Monaco, and it certainly wasn't his fault. If he hit a patch of oil, there's nothing you can do about it. Moreno there, still in 5th place. This is lap 54 of the Monaco Grand Prix, which Senna has in the bag, problems accepted. And he doesn't seem to be having any problems at the moment. He's not having a problem keeping ahead of Prost. The gap has come down another second, but it's still 41 seconds between him and the Ferrari.
Yes, so the battle of the race now is Prost trying to fend off Nigel Mansell, who's getting on one of his charges, but Prost is responding well. Their speeds are going up and up and up as the fuel loads come down. And there is the gap, just over 5 seconds. Mansell's just set another new fastest lap of the race. Prost has set his own personal fastest lap of the race on the same lap in response. And the gap's been between 5 and 6 seconds for some 6 or 7 laps now.
If anybody's going to create a new lap record here at Monaco, it's the man you're looking at, Nigel Mansell. 1 minute 24.85 is his fastest lap so far, the fastest lap of the race, which is 0.4 of a second outside Ayrton Senna's lap record of 1990. That was a speed of 88.1 miles an hour. Well, now in this slightly descending gap between Prost and Senna, it's down to 40 seconds now, because Prost is continuing to lap a second faster than Senna, but they could carry on at this speed, or their relative speeds, for another 40 laps before Prost caught the Brazilian, and the race has only got 23 laps to go. So either Senna's got to go a lot slower, or Prost's got to go a lot faster if we're to have a race for the lead in the closing stages, and I can't see either of those things happening. Because Senna, as I have said many times in the past, will know from his pits-to-car radio, the reception of which is very good here at Monaco, and his pit signals from the board, just what the gap is between himself. Senna is the white dot, and you can see that he's nearly half a lap of Monaco ahead of Alain Prost, who is about 5 seconds or so ahead of Nigel Mansell, the yellow dot. They're climbing up towards Massenet, the left-hander now. No, Mansell is really charging. It is 3.8 seconds now between Mansell and Prost in second place, and Mansell is lapping a second faster than Prost. Fourth position Alesi, fifth Moreno, sixth Lato.
Yes, well, he was a second faster on that lap, but not consistently. But he is going quicker than Prost. Prost was probably held up on that lap because that was about a second slower than Prost has been lapping. However, Mansell is catching him and is capable of lapping a bit quicker. However, but when he gets there, he's going to have a big problem getting round Prost. Prost will know exactly what to do, and that's to make no mistakes, keep it nice and steady through the corners, and leave the onus on Mansell to try and find a way round. And quite frankly, if the driver in front is doing, as I said, keeping it nice and straight into the corners and then powering it, getting the power on early, then it really is extremely difficult for a driver even of Mansell's skills to do anything about it. So Prost certainly has the whip hand, although Mansell will undoubtedly catch him pretty soon. The big job is to try and then find a way past him.
And that's Ayrton Senna catching and soon lapping Roberto Moreno, his countryman, who is in fifth position. Senna absolutely scything his way through the field. Down to the new chicane. Left, right. And I should think Senna will pass Roberto Moreno when they have come out of the Rascasse to start another lap. And that will be lap 58 that they will be starting. Senna leading Prost by 40 seconds. Prost 3 seconds ahead of Mansell, who is third. Mansell 19 seconds ahead of Alesi, who is in fourth position. You're looking at the fifth man, Roberto Moreno, about to be lapped by the leader, with the marshal showing him the blue flag to indicate that there's someone behind him who's wanting to go by. And I think Roberto will be seeing Senna's car big in his mirrors now, so there'll be no doubt in his mind about who is there and what is about to happen to him. JJ Lato still in an excellent sixth position, and he is one of the youngest drivers in the race, only 25 years old. Seventh, and he's a lap down, and it's his teammate Emanuele Pirro as Senna goes through, so he's lapped everybody up to fourth place now. Pirro in seventh place, 2 laps down is Boutsen in the reliable but slow Ligier Lamborghini. He is in 8th place. 9th is Bertrand Gachot, still running in the Jordan Ford, unlike his teammate Andrea de Cesaris, who went out a long time ago. 10th is Eric Bernard, still running. Mika Hakkinen in the Lotus, 11th place. 12th is Eric Comas. And here are the retirements up to lap 58. Gerhard Berger out, Nelson Piquet out, Capelli, Tarquini, more later.
And Mansell is now less than 2 seconds behind Prost, progressing towards Alain Prost.
And you see it as they exit Lowe's hairpin into the tunnel. 1.9 seconds. Prost lapping in 1 minute 26.3. Mansell 1 minute 25.2. So Mansell is keeping up that 1 second a lap faster rhythm and momentum as he closes on the V12 Ferrari of 4 times winner here at Monaco, Alain Prost. Up to the swimming pool section. That daunting left, right, left again, and Mansell is going to be with Prost almost at the end of this lap. Senna really isn't slowing up. 1 minute 25.7 is 9/10 of a second slower than the fastest lap of the race, Nigel Mansell's. But what Senna will not want to do, of course, and be determined not to do, is to lose his concentration. He did that here at Monaco in 1988, and for his pains, he drove straight into the barrier at the entrance to the tunnel. Otherwise, he would have been on target now for 5 wins in a row. And incidentally, people who think that Senna has created an all-time record in terms of successive wins are wrong, because the great Alberto Ascari for Ferrari actually won in the 1950s 9 Grand Prix in succession over 2 seasons, admittedly, but they were successive races. And Ascari, one of the great drivers, still stays a long way ahead of Senna in that sense. And Prost is not very much ahead of Nigel Mansell, who's getting closer and closer on this, the 59th lap, with Senna well away on his 60th lap. In fourth position, it's still Alesi in the Ferrari. Both the Ferraris in the top four, so they may not be quick enough, but thus far they have at least been reliable, which is more than you can say for them in the earlier races this year. And behind Alesi, it's Moreno, a lap down in fifth position still. Leto still sixth. And now Mansell starts his challenge, continues his challenge rather, as he goes round Saint-Devote, climbs the hill to Massenet, with the statue to Monsieur Massenet overlooking it, round the Hotel de Paris, with the residents looking down, having the noise of their peaceful rooms very much disturbed by these racing engines, but hopefully enjoying it. Into the Mirabeau, down to Lowe's hairpin, second gear, stab of flame from the back of Prost V12 Ferrari. And Mansell, who, I remind you, has yet to finish a Grand Prix this year, is now in third place, bidding for second to improve his chance of points from 4 to 6. 10 points for the winner, Ayrton Senna at the moment. 18 laps to go. If you get your line half an inch wrong at the swimming pool, you're in real trouble, as Alex Cathy discovered yesterday, when his rear wheel locked up in the footwork Porsche. Now, remember what James said, Mansell can catch Prost, but the Frenchman is going to make it very, very difficult indeed to get past him. How will he do that, James?
With great difficulty. There is no obvious passing place. The one natural chance he has is after the Casino Square, which we're just entering now, down the little short straight down to the Mirabeau, but he has to be absolutely perfectly put position, and if Prost doesn't want him to pass, he can easily block him into the corner. The Williams Renault certainly looked very impressive around the slow hairpins earlier in the race, but that, again, is not going to be any real help when it comes to overtaking. Basically, what he's got to do is stick really close to Prost and try and force him into a mistake. Try and rattle him and jump around behind in his mirrors to make him start watching his mirrors rather than where he's going, and hope you can force him into an error. But Prost is probably the worst person in the business to choose to do that, because with all his experience, his unflappability, that is not going to be it. So, and I would think also that Nigel, if he's going to get past him without any help from Prost, i.e. by a mistake or a problem from his Ferrari, then Nigel would have to be brave to do that and take a risk. With the season he's had thus far, I think Nigel would be well happy to settle for third place rather than risk everything just to get one more place to come second. But that's easier said than done. When you're in the car, the excitement and everything, it's not quite so easy to be dispassionate about it, and Nigel is not a dispassionate person. So watch for some fireworks, because I'm quite sure he's not going to let this second place tantalize him for too long. He is bound to have a go for it. He's getting into position, he's close to Prost now, and this undoubtedly is the battle of the race. Prost has responded. He's going quicker than he had been earlier in the race. And I'm just watching Mansell's car to see if we can see any hint of engine problem in terms of where he suddenly loses a bit of ground visibly to Prost, but I would think that whatever bug was in his engine has now been removed from it, goodness knows how, because for him to have performed like this for the last few laps, I would have said his engine was running properly.
Still the fastest lap of the race, Nigel Mansell, lap 53, 1 minute 24.85. But what a problem he's got in front of him, because Alain Prost has finished in the top 5 of the World Championship every year since 1981. 5th in 81, 4th in 82, 2nd in 83, 1st in 85 and 86, 4th in 87, 2nd in 88, 1st in 89, second last year, and he's going to go back to second place in the World Championship this year to Ayrton Senna, if he finishes where he is now, because Prost currently has 9 points in the World Championship and would add 6 to make it 15. It would take him ahead of Gerhard Berger, who had 10 points when this race began, but of course is now out of it a long time ago. But Ayrton Senna would be 25 points ahead of Alain Prost if he wins. And Nigel Mansell, as you can see, James has said that Mansell is very much a fighter, and how he's fighting now. He sees a chance of second place. This is lap 63.
Could be lining up for a go at the chicane, but that requires some bravery. He is, and Mansell's going down the inside of the chicane, locked his brakes a bit. Bravery it required, bravery it got, and great skill too. Tremendous manoeuvre by Mansell. That really does require a lot of guts and a lot of accuracy, and Mansell makes it into second place. The road is very narrow here. We don't have a good angle to see it. Now his front wheel was locked, but he just managed to slow it down enough, and that was, as one would expect for that, a very, very marginal thing, but he made it, and tremendous stuff by Nigel Mansell.
A truly great passing manoeuvre, because remember that there is oil in that area from Stefano Modina's broken Honda V10, which took Riccardo Patrese off, and that passing manoeuvre of Nigel Mansell's there was akin to the one in 1987 at Silverstone, when he took the winning place from Nelson Piquet, his then teammate, and went through to win the British Grand Prix. Well, Nigel Mansell, now let's have a look at lap times. Mansell is lapping slower than Senna, but you can see that now he's got past Alain Prost, he's pulling away.
Well, Mansell's clearly the quickest man on the circuit, and certainly charging, and in fact, what interests me really more than Mansell's manoeuvre then was the fact that Prost made no attempt to defend second place. He didn't try and, because all he had to do was take the middle of the road then, and Mansell could not have done that. And that to me smacks of a man whose motivation is not what it was, and is not really there. And I think Prost has had a pretty depressing season so far, and that failure to defend second place to me was the air of a man depressed.
I suspect he's got a problem, because he's dropped so far back in this one lap, and he seemed to me to be going very much slower than he had on previous laps. But I believe that Alain Prost has got a problem. We'll soon know, because Alesi is closing up on him in fourth position. There is Prost in the background, and Mansell now is lapping 1.6 seconds, or was this last lap, faster than Senna, up to the inevitable Martini being lapped yet again. But Martini moves through. He's now 4 laps behind, and he has had, remember, a 10-second penalty, the first time in Grand Prix history that such a penalty has been imposed. And look how far Nigel Mansell has pulled away now from Alain Prost, and he's starting to close on Mika Häkkinen in the Lotus. Judd in 11th position, 2 laps down. But now let's make a note of this. Nigel Mansell on the 64th lap was 41 seconds behind this man, Ayrton Senna, who is climbing up towards the Hotel de Paris on his 66th lap in this 78-lap race. So he's still got a tremendous cushion, but how much of a cushion is it? I'll tell you in a moment when Nigel Mansell goes through to start his lap after Ayrton Senna, and he has still not done so. Now, where is Mansell? Mansell is going through now. And it's 39 seconds, 39.3, and he's lapped 1.7 seconds faster than Ayrton Senna. But let's not get too wildly excited about it, because even if Senna is caught at the rate that Mansell is catching him now, it would still take the Englishman, according to my mental arithmetic, something like 25 laps to catch him, and there are only 12 laps left in the race. But at the moment, you are watching race leader Ayrton Senna on his way to his 4th Monaco Grand Prix win in 5 years, and that would be his 4th win of 1991, firmly to rivet his hold at the moment on the World Championship of 1991, having won it in 1990. He's on lap 67. He's just gone round in 1 minute 27.3 seconds. And Nigel Mansell, if he's on target and maintaining his consistency, should have brought the lead down to about 38 seconds when he goes through. And the Brazilian flags are already appearing, furled admittedly, in the crowd, ready to wave them at Senna when, hopefully, from their point of view, he goes through, having won at Monaco. And in 3rd position, it's Prost, and he's now 6 seconds behind Mansell, and 16 seconds ahead of Alesi, that we're looking at now in 4th position. Moreno is a lap adrift in 5th place. 6th position is still later on the same lap as Roberto Moreno. 7th is Pirro, 8th is Boutsen, 9th is Gachot, 10th is Bernard, 11th is Hakkinen, 12th is Eric Comas, and the last runner in the race in 13th place is Pierluigi Martini, 3 laps behind Ayrton Senna, and the gap is down between Senna, the race leader, and Nigel Mansell in 2nd place to 38 seconds. And Mansell is continuing to lap well over a second faster than Senna. Alesi. The reliable Ferrari of Jean Alesi, who failed to finish in Phoenix and Brazil. He was 2nd here in the Tyrrell Ford last year and impressed us enormously with his ability to get the last ounce of power out of the DFR Ford V8 engine, which powered last year's Tyrrell. And now, of course, the Tyrrells have V10 Honda engines, both of them out of the race. Nakajima when he spun at the chicane, and Stefano Modena when his Honda engine let go in the biggest possible way to deposit the oil, which removed Riccardo Patrese from 3rd position. Prost is now 7 seconds behind Mansell, and we are on lap 68. Hakkinen has gone missing. Mika Hakkinen has gone missing. He was in 11th position, having finished 5th at San Marino 2 weeks ago. And that's it. That's his car. And Hakkinen is out of the cockpit. So hopefully he is quite okay. And it looks to me as though there's been a fire from all the extinguisher smoke there.
Yes, and it looks to me as if the car was undamaged, so I think he may have just parked it with some problem with a bit of a fire round the back, and that maybe all that mess is hopefully just from extinguisher foam. But the car had 4 wheels on it and appeared not to have been crashed.
And here is the Ferrari of Jean Alesi. 10 laps to go to the end of the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna, 38.5 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell. Prost, Alesi, Moreno and Leto are the top 6.
Yes, and Ayrton Senna, who's been easing back on his lap times for some few laps now, has slowed it down further and is lapping some 4 or 5 seconds slower than he could do if he wanted. And that is just to look after the car, get it to the finish, and he still has 35 seconds advantage over Nigel Mansell. Mansell still has to keep going pretty hard. There's no point in him really trying to chase Senna, but Prost is only 8.5 seconds behind. And at a circuit like this, with traffic and things like that, an 8.5 second lead can disappear very quickly indeed. So he'll want to keep going. He'll want to extend that cushion if he can do it without overstressing his car. Prost isn't fighting hard about it. He too wants to be sure to get a finish and pick up some points.
Yes, you can see how much Senna slowed down by the fact that Roberto Moreno, who he lapped some time ago, is now within sight of the Brazilians' McLaren Honda. This is Roberto on his way to 2 points at the present moment to add to the no points that he already has. So it's going to move him into the World Championship points for the first time this season. And and that tells you the situation. You can see that Mansell is cutting into that lead all the time now, under 35 seconds, but not fast enough. Ferrari third, Ferrari fourth, Benetton Ford fifth, Dallara, Judd in 6th and 7th places, Pirot and Leto. So Emanuele Pirot has moved ahead of his teammate on the same lap. Both of them a lap behind Ayrton Senna. So Leto out of the points, Pirot into the points for the first time this season. Boutsen in the Ligier Lamborghini, 2 laps down in 8th position, as is Bertrand Gachot in the Jordan Ford, who is 9th. Eric Bernard is in 10th position in the Lola, also 2 laps down. 11th is Comas. Hakkinen out of the race, which means to say that the errant Pierluigi Martini, the last of the 12 runners out of the 26 who started, is in 12th place. The Senna goes through, looking down from the hill on which the Royal Palace is situated. And Senna goes through now into his 70th lap. 78 lap race, and that is a total of 161 miles or 260 kilometres if you would prefer it that way. And Senna's just got to keep going. There was recently a submission from all sorts of experts about who were the truly great racing drivers of all time. Some of them included Ayrton Senna, and some of them did not, but there is little doubt that those who did not had better revise their opinions now, because the Brazilian is utterly dominant in Grand Prix racing now, backed by, as he is, by the excellence of the McLaren team. In order to win, you've not only got to be an extremely good, not to say the best driver, but you've also got to have the best car backed by the best team, and that's what Senna has.
Yes, and the reason JJ Leto is slowing down so much is he's clearly got a mechanical problem, because his lap time is more than 15 seconds slower than he was doing just recently, and that is why his teammate Emanuele Pirot has got past him, but Leto is going to lose more places before the end, and that's if he can keep the car going at all, because he's obviously got a serious mechanical problem.
Senna has just gone through to complete another lap, so he is now on his 72nd lap as he comes up to Martini, who, covered in confusion and embarrassment maybe, actually waves the Brazilian through. And Senna lost no time at all. As James has said earlier on, Senna has got such psychological dominance over the rest of the entry, or certainly the midfield and tail runners, that when they see that red and white shape topped by the yellow blob that is Senna's helmet appearing in their mirrors, they move out of the way very smartly indeed, where they might not do so quickly for others. And Senna is 32 seconds ahead of Nigel Mansell now, who's continuing to lap 1 second a lap faster than the McLaren, but I continue to say that it is not enough. 32 seconds gap, 6 laps left to go, and 1 second a lap gain is not going to be enough. You remember that in Brazil, Ayrton Senna slowed right down, and in Imola he slowed right down. He's actually lucky to have finished races this year, because he had his fuel pump hanging on by 2 wires in Phoenix. In Brazil, his gearbox packed up. At San Marino, the oil pressure light had been showing for some 20 laps, but he got home. It's not enough to be good, you've got to be lucky, and vice versa. And Senna now on his 73rd lap in this 78 lap race. He's got just that short distance between him and yet another victory, the 4th of the year in the World Championship, and it will be his 4th in 5 years at Monaco. A superb record. So Senna, Mansell 32 seconds behind, Prost third, 10 seconds behind Mansell now, and 15 seconds ahead of Alesi, who is 4th. Moreno is 5th but has been lapped. Pirot is 6th but has been lapped. Boutsen has now moved up to 7th place, because as James forecast, Leto has lost yet another place, and there's a stop Ferrari there, and it is that of Alain Prost. And that means to say that Alesi goes up into third position. I can't see what the problem is, but the mechanics are looking underneath at the gearbox and jacking the car up. Well, Alain Prost is seeing a certain 4 points disappear out of the pit lane. I suspect there was something jammed under the car. They had to jack it up and then let it down again before Prost could get away. Maybe the pneumatic tyre wrench, I'm guessing, but for whatever reason, Alain Prost has slid down the field now. Alesi has moved up into third place. Ayrton Senna, on his untroubled way, as ever, is on lap 74 with another 4 laps to go at the end of this one. 75, 6, 7 and 8. And Prost was actually in for a tyre change. We didn't see the beginning of it, and it was a bungled, muffed tyre change of which the Ferrari team cannot be at all proud.
Well, I can't believe that was his only reason for coming in, because it would be a bungled decision, unless he had a puncture or something, to come in at this late stage of the race with Alesi in striking distance of him, but wouldn't have caught him if the tyres were working at all for Prost. And that makes me, again, suspicious of Prost's motivation and the way he's thinking, because really he should have been fighting for second place rather than going in for tyres.
Now this is the only scrap on the race. It is between Bertrand Gachot in the green Jordan Ford and Eric Bernard in the Larousse Lola Ford. And Bernard had a struggle last year because he was fighting against Gregor Wojtek, and he took the points position from the Swiss driver Wojtek on the very last lap. He's not fighting for points at the moment because Gachot is in 8th position, but he is fighting. So Senna now 26.5 seconds ahead of Mansell. He's on his 75th lap. Alesi is third. Down to fourth goes Prost. Fifth is still Moreno. And sixth is still Emanuele Pirro, who's going to earn a point, but there will be people who say that he doesn't deserve to have earned a point from the way he was driving earlier on in the race. Senna, now you see, Moreno is right up with Ayrton Senna. I mean, this happened before in the previous 3 races this year, and we discovered subsequently that it was because Senna had a problem. Now, I don't know whether he's got a problem or not now, but you know, he lets Moreno through. Now the gap is down to 21 seconds. It's going to be very interesting indeed, but no, so I'm pretty sure, I really am guessing, but I'm pretty sure that Senna has decided to dawdle home for some reason.
Well, he's got the space in which to do it, and certainly his lap times don't at the moment suggest that he's got a serious problem, unlike Brazil, where he had the car stuck in 5th or 6th gear, I think, and couldn't really cope. But the gearbox has been a bugbear for the McLaren team, and it was last year. Senna finished a lot of races with less than a full complement of gears, and that could be a problem around here, but I don't think he's got one at the moment. He's still lapping quite quickly enough to hold on. Mansell's got much too much to do to catch him now. Though Senna's just pacing himself in to the flag. He doesn't want to take any risks with traffic. He doesn't want to take any risks mechanically for the car. No reason to do that. He's done his work. There you are, nearly 17 seconds still over Mansell with only 3 laps to go.
He's on lap 76, so he's got this. Lap 77, lap 78. 17 seconds lead over Nigel Mansell, who's actually gone round the last lap 5 seconds faster than Senna. So if James and I are right, and Senna is coolly pacing himself to victory, it underlines his coolness, and that, I think, was J.J. Leto in the background going out of the race, which certainly makes sense. Senna coming through to complete his 76th lap and start his penultimate lap, closing again on Moreno. And out of the race, Berger, Piquet, Capelli, Tarquini, De Cesaris, Suzuki, Nakajima, Modena, Patrese, Alboreto, Guzubin, Blundell, Morbidelli, Häkkinen, and now Leto. There are 11 drivers left in the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix, and one of them is Ayrton Senna, who is now on his 77th and last but one lap on his way to his 4th victory of the year and his 4th victory at Monaco in 5 years. Now, where is Mansell? 16 seconds behind, and it was 17 and a bit seconds on the previous lap. So Senna has definitely speeded up. 1 minute 27.6 compared with Mansell 1:27.2. The Brazilian does not appear to have a problem, notwithstanding the fact that Moreno has unlapped himself. Senna, in fact, has closed the gap between himself and his Brazilian countryman that had been built up by the Benetton Ford driver. So Senna into the chicane for the last time but one. We're riding with Roberto Moreno out of the chicane down to the tabac, the left-hander, sweeping left-hander now, which goes into the swimming pool section, left, right. And Senna has clearly decided that he's going to get a shift on, because he's now up with Moreno and I think trying to get past him.
Yes, I think Senna, rather strange driving by Senna. He slowed down to let Moreno pass, then speeded up himself and wanted to get back past. But I think he's just having, I would only guess he's having a bit of fun to try and keep himself awake. Remember, he's very tired at this stage of the race. It takes an awful lot out of you physically, and to have some mental exercise to do is often helpful. But Senna, now on his last lap, proved himself the absolute master of Monte Carlo street circuits. He was masterful as usual in qualifying. His brilliance in traffic then came into play, and that put a very stern challenge from Stefano Modena in its place. Modena was able to cling on to Senna very effectively until they got seriously into the back markers. And in fact, he then fought Manfrey on for quite some time, and the gap was still in single figures for half distance of the race. And at that point, then Pirro, Modena got behind Emanuele Pirro, who was himself battling to lap Martini. Pirro just ignored Modena's presence. Modena was stuck behind him for 2 or 3 laps, and all of a sudden Senna was out of sight, and Modena was having to fight for his second place behind Patrese, who'd come in from 12 seconds behind, courtesy of Pirro's blocking. In fact, it became academic, and Senna went on his untroubled way to his 4th Grand Prix victory of the season. 4 out of 4, fantastic performance.
No one has ever won the first 4 Grand Prix of a season. That is about to be changed, and has been changed, as Ayrton Senna adds victory in the 1991 Monaco Grand Prix to those of 1987, 89 and 90, and the first 3 races of this year. Nigel Mansell scoring points for the first time this year by finishing in 2nd place, 18.3 seconds behind Ayrton Senna, who was 2 seconds faster than Mansell on the last lap, proving that he was indeed taking his time. We look now at Jean Alesi finishing on the podium for the first time since he joined the Ferrari team at the beginning of this year, coming home in 3rd place, but a long way behind. And as last year, only the first 3 drivers have gone the full 78-lap race distance. Roberto Moreno finishes 4th in the Benetton Ford, a lap behind. Alain Prost finishes 5th. Emanuele Pirro takes his first point of the year, and his first point for Dallara, who thus scored points 2 races in succession by finishing in 6th place. Thierry Boutsen 7th, 2 laps down. Bertrand Gachot 8th, 2 laps down. Bernard 9th, 2 laps down. Eric Comas similarly 2 laps down in 10th position. 11th is JJ Leto, 3 laps down, so both the Dallaras did eventually finish officially. And Pierluigi Martini, I think, will be classified 12th, albeit 7 laps behind. Prost, the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 24.3, and that is a new lap record.
Yes, and that was done on the fresh tyres after he stopped, and I find that happily the worst fears about Prost's pit stop were not founded. He did have a problem with one of the wheel rims, and it was leaking, so effectively he had a flat tyre, so he did have to go into the pits. And then there was a problem also with the Ferrari organisation in there, because as we saw, he didn't get out of the pits very cleanly. But of course, on fresh rubber with a light fuel load, it's not surprising that he got consolation, the fastest lap at a new lap record. But to a man of his accomplishments, that is very thin consolation compared with losing second place, because that would at least have kept him vaguely alive in the chase in the championship for Senna. Senna really with a huge lead now, but believe me, it is not over yet. We're only 4 races into a 16-race championship. Senna has been dominant, he's driven brilliantly, but he has also had luck on his side. As Murray pointed out earlier, his gearbox, he was stuck in only 1 gear in Brazil. He had fuel pump hanging off in Phoenix, so both races you could have said he was lucky to have finished them at all. And his luck can turn, and other people's luck can turn the other way, and it does tend to do this. I don't believe myself, whilst I think obviously Senna is favourite to win the championship, he was favourite before the season started, so nothing's changed there, but he is not yet out of sight, and things can turn. And let's hope so, because we need a good battle in the championship, and we need some good battles in the races, because Senna, more through the fault of the opposition than through his own. He dominated Phoenix, but the other races, there have been people able to stay with him, and but they have fallen by the wayside for one reason or another, and Senna has been left on his own in each case. This won't always happen.
Well, there is Senna on his rundown lap, waving to a crowd which respects his expertise and ability and success, having won for the 4th time in Monaco, beating Nigel Mansell, who's taken points for the first time this season by finishing second, and Senna won by 18.348 seconds. Lacey was some 30 seconds behind Mansell, so Nigel had a super race. What a pity whatever the problem was not cleared earlier, because I've little doubt that he would have given Senna a challenge for his money had he been able to get up with him, but he wasn't. Moreno in 4th place, 1 lap down. Prost in 5th position, 1 lap down. And that means to say, if my mental arithmetic is right, and as Senna does a bit of exhibitionism as he comes into the end, it means that Alain Prost is only going to be 1 point ahead of Gerhard Berger in 2nd place in the championship. So Senna's got 40 points now, which is as much as he could possibly have got by winning all 4 races. Prost is 2nd with 11 points. Berger is 3rd with 10 points. Then in 4th position, and they're tying, Riccardo Patrese and Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell. And JJ Leto follows them. No, Jean Alesi follows them with 5 points. But whilst James, I'm sure, is right in saying that the World Championship is far from decided, it means that everybody else is going to have to try very, very hard to beat Senna with such a commanding lead. And Senna embraces Nigel Mansell, a rather downcast-looking Mansell, because I'm sure he knows that he could have done better. There's Joe Ramirez on the right of McLaren, and Senna is now getting ready to receive his trophy from His Serene Highness Prince Rainier of Monaco. And how good it is that the rain held off at Monaco. As I talk to you, it's overcast, there's some low cloud on the hills, and I suspect that we will not be back in our hotels very long when the rain starts coming down. Well, it's not the first time this has happened, that Senna has shaken the hand of Prince Rainier. There's Princess Stephanie in the background, and Jean Alesi. He was 2nd last year. He's 1 place lower this year. That's the 4th time this season that Ayrton Senna has raised the cup of victory. 31 years old, and that means to say that out of 114 Grand Prix, he has now won 30.
I'm very satisfied with the result, of course. It's a great victory, and I will say nothing. I had some problems, but I will say nothing because what it matters is what we achieve in the end. Is the result and is the victory that counts. Another 10 points for the championship. But for sure, to race here in Monte Carlo, almost 2 hours race, it's very hard physically because it's bumpy and it hurts a lot. Your shoulders, your neck, and so on. And if you have also to change gears, it really hurts. But I won, and I'm happy, and that's it.
I had a number of problems. One was slow change with the gearbox, but I'm very happy because it got me to the end of the race. Twice the engine cut and stopped on the circuit, and I had to restart it by using the clutch. But then I was catching Alan, which surprised me a little bit with all the problems, and then I don't know who blew up, but there's a lot of oil and everyone was keeping to the right, and I think Alan made a little bit of a mistake going into the tunnel, which enabled me to come alongside coming out, and by the grace of the good Lord I managed to stop in time for the chicane. It was quite exciting, but it was reasonably safe.